So welcome everyone to the next iteration of a SPRY webinar. Today we have a privilege of having two very welcome guests, and as well as Bhuptani, who is the founder and the CEO of SPRY. So I will start with the introduction, guys, and then we'll go get the ball rolling. So first, I want to introduce Christi Riley, who is a highly accomplished physical therapist with more than 25 years of outpatient experience and deep expertise in manual therapy and integrative rehabilitation. She brings exceptional breadth of advanced certifications spanning orthopedic, sports rehab, vestibular care, pelvic health, and performance training. Her philosophy centers on uncovering the true drivers of symptoms and empowering every individual to realize their innate capacity to heal. And we have Neil Tuckett, who is a founder and CEO of Practice Promotions, also a physical therapist and a former practice owner. Practice Promotions is a marketing agency. He successfully ran his own practice in Florida before selling it for 7 figures. Now his marketing agency helps 1,200 PT clinics locations get more patients online with the PT-specific websites, Google Ads, SEO, email marketing, and social media. And of course, Bhuptani, who is a founder and CEO of SPRY, a career entrepreneur and a technologist who has built this platform. And it will be great to have all of us together having this conversation. So welcome, everyone.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alex. Great to be here.
So today we're going to cover these topics. So we want to really explore what it means for a clinic and as an enterprise to end some of the variability and randomness and this chaos and structure a valid output that helps a practice and practice owner validate this process and validate this platform. So again, thank you all for being here. And we're going to get things started with the first question for Christi. So Christi, you are a practice owner. Can you describe what a normal day felt like in a clinic and what it has evolved into right now?
Yes, absolutely. So before integration with all of the systems that I have now, um, it was kind of a burden. Lots of time spent in documentation, burnout from every, person involved in the organization, from the therapist to the front desk to, the billing department. And so it was really problematic wanting to come to work and being excited about doing the thing that we love. Also just not having the visibility of being able to see the billing right away as patients walked in, not being able to answer questions right away for patients. And then just the fragmented system of like, did the patient complete their paperwork, not knowing, and then we'd have to like have them waste their time while they're there completing the paperwork because we, either may have lost it or they didn't do it and now they had to come early to do it and they don't want to be there that early. So it just started out the whole process of treating a patient very difficult. And then, sometimes we wouldn't get therapists completing their notes in time. And so they would, do it at home and then they'd get tired and then they wouldn't do it for several weeks and they'd forget about it. And then we didn't know. And so not getting reimbursed, in an efficient and effective manner. So all around it was very difficult. But now, since the integration, now I have direct access to billing right away. Patients come in, have questions. I can tell them exactly what they owe in real time. The other great thing is because of the AI scribe, now we're able to complete our documentation so much faster. And because it's transcribing as it goes, it's great because like we can spend all of our time with our patients treating them instead of trying to type away. And also, if you forget what you did by the end of the day, it's all there, so you can go back and be like, oh yeah, that's what I did with them. And then the front desk is all excited because they have the integration with the digital paperwork. Patients have it all completed in time. And if they don't, we have direct visibility of that. And so we can get get them to do it digitally, and it's faster because it just syncs into our EMR. And in addition to all of that, we get instant verifications. They're not on the phone all day trying to get all that done. So these are all great things. There's less burnout, there's less chaos. People thoroughly enjoy coming, and patients love coming in because they get so much attention from us for the full time that they're there. We're not distracted by paperwork or phone calls going everywhere. So it's great. I can't imagine what it's like to go back to that. I don't think I can actually go back to that again. So
I think
yeah.
this would be a good time, actually, even to do a little bit of a segue, and I'll ask Neil and Bridge just to chime in a little bit on this. Why do you think therapists, especially as a cohort of specialists, are so good at accommodating for these friction points without actually ever seeking solutions? What do you think is up with us just operating, but not really looking for a better
Yeah.
solution? So Neil, what do you think?
I'll be happy to answer it because, being a PT, being in the trenches for, being a therapist actually for 10 years and then having to practice for 8 years, we're problem solvers, right? That's what we do as physical therapists. We solve problems all day. And so we can really figure out a lot of things with treating a patient, figuring out different scenarios. And when it comes to the business aspect, we feel that we can figure it all out too. But we become the bottleneck, and it's something that we see time and time again. I mean, we work with clinics from one practice owner to clinics that have 220 locations. And so, in order to scale, you have to remove yourself as the bottleneck. And the only way to do that is to implement systems into your practice. And so the clinics that I see that are successful in scaling and growing are the ones that keep leveling up their systems to get to that next level. So I would say that's the area that we see a lot of friction, and I'm sure a lot of our audience can relate to, because if you're feeling you're coming up against something, there's these natural stages of business and growth, and if you're coming up against this kind of invisible ceiling and you feel it, it's because you don't have the systems to go to that next level yet, right? And that's where you have to be looking beyond what you're currently doing to what can I do differently to get to that next level that's going to make things a lot easier and operate at a different level.
Yeah, and Glass, it's about systems. So, Bridge, what do you think from an engineering perspective? How do we approach these systems?
Yeah, but I think it starts from envisioning what your end state wants to be, right? What is it that you want the end state to be? I'm not a physical therapist, and I think when I started SPRY, it was a very different business, right? We were doing remote monitoring and computer vision. But as part of that, when I went to clinics and I saw firsthand what Christi described, right? End-to-end systems, but still so many papers floating around and chaos all around. And when I imagined myself as a physical therapist or operating in that clinic, I envisioned a very different me, right? Similar to what we built in the past life, in my past experience, or an Uber type experience, where you click a cab button and the cab comes to you, right? So why couldn't this be more streamlined? So I imagined that what the end state of the system should be. If I was a therapist, I wouldn't worry about this paperwork. I wouldn't worry about insurance. My job should be treating patient and the system takes care of it, right? So I think imagining the end state, I think where the industry got plagued is, I think people think about it in silos, right? And I call it information asymmetry between. So to run an efficient clinic, there is 3 or 4 different components, right? The front desk, which deals with the patient, does the intake. All of that information is important for the therapist to absorb and digest and act on, right? And then what the front desk does, what the therapist does, has to go to the billing people. And this information flow has to be seamless between all of them, right? But when solutions have been thought of and people have just thought of their problem and their solution, these solutions don't talk to each other. So you needed someone on top to think of the end-to-end problem and what the end state of the solution should be. Right? Therapists should be just talking to patients. That's all they should be doing. And the owner, like Christi, should be getting a money in the bank, right? So when you envision that end state, then you start thinking of the system very differently. And that's how we started, right? So I think always imagine the end state. That's why I think I'm an engineer, and the lazy engineers are the best engineers because they don't want to do the work. So become lazy at times. Think of what are things that you don't want to do and try to automate that, right? And that's how at least I thought about how a clinic should operate, not only just PT, but any outpatient, high volume, low value clinic should operate in that. So that's my view.
That's perfect. I think that's really insightful, especially from a different angle of looking at a problem on automation. So, Christi, the next question is for you, and this one more from a lived experience. So, having been a therapist for this time and having experienced all these systems, what does the old process of having this documentation spill into your daily life feel like, and how did it feel like it translated into patient care the next morning? So what was it before, and how has it changed now?
Well, on a clinical side as a therapist, I just remember spending hours after I was done treating completing the paperwork and documentation and, trying to make sure it's compliant and shows skilled intervention, all the cognitive load to try and complete a note. And then, did I do this? Do we have the auth? Do we have all the stuff? And I just remember feeling like, I put so much energy into that the energy that I needed to be creative in the thought process to treat the patient the next day just gets sucked out and drained. So it just takes away from what you want to give to the patient, because now you're thinking, oh, I got to, do this. Oh, yeah, I have to remember to send this. Oh, yeah, I got to do that too. There's so much. And so it just really impacts your ability to give great quality care when you have so many areas where you got to like check the boxes to make sure you've completed all this stuff, when all I really want to do, like Bridge said, is to treat the patient and be present with them in that time. Now that the AI scribe transcribes everything, I don't even actually remember the last time I actually typed a note during patient care, to be honest with you. If I did, it's because like I was trying to direct myself to remember something totally not related to the treatment, but maybe I wanted to send them a link to a, product or something. So maybe it was something like that, but I hardly ever type now while I'm treating a patient. So I'm so present and super aware of what the patient is needing. I'm able to make eye contact with them. I'm actually able to put my hands on them the entire time I'm with them. And that's the value that the patient is receiving. And they cannot get that anywhere else. Especially these days, I get a lot of them telling me how they have gone to clinics where they hardly are touched. They're put on machines and they're funneled through a system, and they just feel like they're getting the same treatment every day. And they don't get that with us, because we're able to integrate a system that does it all for us. So we're able to spend so much time with the patient. So it's way different.
Like get rid of the role from the patient experience. You are there. So
and it's interesting because they'll be like, wow, like, aren't you going to write that down, or aren't you going to type that? I'm like, no, I don't need to, because, you gave me consent to record this. So we're good. So they're just surprised that I am able to just, and the other thing too is like when they're telling me what's going on with them, I'm able to treat in real time and not go back and document and then go back fragmented and be like, oh yeah, what was that again? Which side was that again? And which direction did that hurt again? So it's like, it flows a lot more efficient. There's less cognitive load on my brain. And by the time I'm done with my 10, 13 patients a day, I'm not feeling like, oh, I need to go take a break, I
think Christi brings up a fantastic experience there, right? So when we're looking to grow our business, we have to realize like what the core thing, and that's the patient experience. So if we want the patients to not drop off, to keep coming, to have a wonderful experience, have an incredible outcome, and then go tell their friends and family, go leave us a Google review, all those actions are going to help us get more new patients in the door. It starts with that patient experience. And if your therapists are dragged down with documenting, and it's a lot of times it's these like things that you just aren't aware of, it's that small perception by the patient that, what, they seem to be like documenting a lot of times here, or I'm not really feeling I'm getting a lot out of coming to therapy. If you can shift that paradigm, then you're going to have a much richer patient experience, and it gives you the opportunity to close a lot of cycles of drop-offs, lost revenue, and from a marketing standpoint, give you a lot of power for very good outcomes, positive reviews, repeat patients, word of mouth referrals. Like, it just goes on and on.
Yeah, and that is absolutely the point. I think having domain expertise and being able to translate this to actual patient experience. So Bridge, the next question would be for you, and for this one, I think we spoke about process and we spoke about systems. How do you organize these systems into a cohesive narrative so that in like a system like an EMR operates well within the larger domain?
Yeah, I think it starts with the objectives of the clinic, right? Very important to understand the objectives that you want to achieve. And I'll not talk about the clinic. I think not an expert there, Christi and Neera, but I'll talk about a product roadmap or an engineering roadmap that we have to do, right? There are so many things that you could build, and you can draw the analogy. Start with an objective and start talking about the metric, right? What's the objective? Okay, you want your therapist to be less burned out is an objective, right? And then you start breaking down, okay, why is there a burnout happening? Step one, because they're spending too much time on admin, they're talking to front office too much, they have to haggle with patients for copay, right? You start listing down the tasks, which is like, so I call it the P&L statement or the list of tasks, which is resulting in that um, burnout, right? If that's all. If the objective is to drive reimbursement, then okay, is every appointment getting paid? Am I missing out on any appointment? So you actually start breaking down things. So first, very clearly define what is the objective that you're driving towards. Write down all the points which are stopping you from achieving that objective. And then once you have that, right, don't start building the solution for the first objective right there and there, right? Because that will result in something myopic. You will not think end to end. You will not think how the different systems will talk to each other. And then once you have the entire map in front of you, so very similar to what, I don't know if you see FBI crime thrillers, etc. When they're solving a crime, they draw something on the whiteboard, right? They put a pin and then they have all these crisscrosses, etc., connecting to each other. And running a clinic, running a business is not very, very different, right? I think there are different cross-functional teams, there are different dependencies. So when you do that, I think that's when the picture starts emerging in front of you, right? That this is how you want your system to operate. This is how you want your systems to operate. This is how your processes to operate. These are the bottlenecks, right? And these are solutions. I think it always starts with that. I think, and it comes from clarity of thought, right? I think we've been fortunate to work with people like Christi, and that's where SPRY has been successful as well, where people know what they want, right? And they are the ones who push us as well. That when the clinicians know exactly what they want, SPRY works out the best for them, right? Because SPRY works with them to achieve their objective. If someone comes and says, okay, do whatever you want, I think we also get lost. And because there's no clear objective. Now we do, but in the early days, we got lost. And Christi can attest to that, right? But when the clinicians are sure, when the practice owners are sure that what is the objective, we work with them. It can take a few iterations to get to the objective. And then you put it, and we are good at putting things together, right? It doesn't matter whether the system is small, big, complex, right? I think it comes down to understanding the problem, understanding the real bottlenecks, the 3-4 core problems that you have to attack. And when you start doing that, you can actually build a cohesive system together. And what you're hearing today is a result of all that work, right? But you need people who understand it. And we've been fortunate to work with people like Christi who actually understand that this is what they want.
Yeah, I do have to admit, I do feel bad every time I put in a request. I'm like, can you guys do this for And it's amazing because the response back always is yes. I don't think I've ever heard a no. Sometimes it's it may not happen soon, but it's definitely never a no. And I'm just not used to hearing that. And it's literally only limited by our lack of creativity and our lack of what we actually want. But that's the one great thing about SPRY is that you guys are super flexible and adaptive and can create anything that we ask. So it's amazing.
And it's not about saying or yes, right? I think the bigger question, which again everyone cannot answer, is we ask why. Why do you need this, right? Or why do you need this template? Or why do you need this macro? I think that's the more important question. And then the yes or no is answered for by themselves, right? And because it's not that we cater to every request, but we also try to reason with people, and not everyone takes that reasoning kindly, right? Or well, but people who have the right vision, people have the right objective, understand that why we're asking that question on why. So understanding it's not about yes or no. I think the first question to ask is why do you want to do this, right? What business metric is impacting? And Christi would have seen that. There are some requests you might not have catered to, but you always asked why do you want to do that? How does it improve, right? It's just because today if you go on Twitter, you go on everyone's talking about AI, everyone's talking about features. You don't want to just you don't want to just follow the next shiny object, right? You want to be catered or tested to your goals. And if it works toward that, we'll build it. Because if you build it for Christi, you have another 500 clinics which work with us, we'll benefit as well. That's why we understand the why very well before the yes or no comes to her.
Right. And it's almost always because of efficiency. We want 1 less click or 3 less clicks, please, and flow. Because as a mind of a therapist, they don't want to be doing something in a manner which doesn't flow. We don't want to have them lay down and then stand. We want that flow to be efficient. So it's usually those. And I think that's why you guys are always saying yes.
It's about alignment, right? Building a bridge and building an alignment between different organizations. So with Neil being on this call too, I think it's very important to align and look into a specific structure of like even the first encounter, with the importance of the phone ringing and the phone or not ringing in the practice. So what are some of the most important objectives of actually delivering a patient into practice, and how does a practice promotion work and operationalize it?
But I would say, for our audience out there, is with your business, right? We need 3 critical areas. As I always say, there's 3 critical areas to your business. One is how are you acquiring new business, your new patients, right? And then how are you operating in a way that's super efficient and delivering an exceptional outcome? And then third, how are you managing finances? So that's billing and all the finances of the business and running that. Any one of those areas needs attention at any one time, and you need to level up the systems in each one. We have to look from a patient experience standpoint. If you want to get more people into your practice, we need to look at like, what are people doing out there and what choices are they making and what help are they kind of seeing and how can I get in front of them? And so if you don't have a good system in place and you just have, a website up there and you've tried some ads here, maybe on Facebook, or tried some ads on Google, and you're not doing too well with that, there's a lot of chaos going on with that. And so if you don't have the proper systems to get that next level of new patients into the clinic to supply the business, you're going to have inconsistent patient volume from that. You're going to have a lot of times you're not advertising right, so you might get a lot of patients in that don't have the right insurance that you might work with, or if you're trying to float a new kind of cash line service, you're not getting in front of those kind of people that want that type of service. And then you become very reliant on maybe one or two key physicians that are referring to you. And that's going to cause you to have troubles, right? So what you really need to work on here is that what systems you have in place for that patient flow, and then how do your different tech stacks work together to make that a really great experience for someone discovering you, to coming into the clinic, to then going out and telling the world about your amazing services. So it really starts off, I think, in today's world, we've got how people are searching. That's Google, and that's also AI search now. So we've got ChatGPT, Gemini are kind of the predominant ones for the public out there. So the greater your visibility is going to be there, the better you're going to do. Example, like with Christi and Kintsugi PT, 2 years ago, they were just getting about 900 people a month visit their website. Now they're getting almost 2,000 people visit their website a month. So you can imagine, what would 12,000 more patients a year or people a year finding your website do? So that's a key thing. But now they come into your website, and your website's really the front of your business online. So your website has to do its job of converting those people who visit them into actual people wanting to book. And so how is the website designed? What is the flow of that? What is the interest level? How can we keep people on it for a long period of time? And then how do we make that booking really as seamless as possible? And that's where SPRY can really help too, is this really smooth scheduling experience for new people coming in and existing patients too. And then as they're coming into our clinic, how do we have this ongoing patient communication? Because you see them for 2 or 3 hours out of the week as they come into your clinic. All those other times they could be having financial considerations, and that's where they might drop off. But if we have this ongoing patient communication, appointment reminders, you name it, they're going to stay with us longer. And then that comes back to the retention. And how do we get those patients to come back in 6 months down the road or 12 months down the road? Something flares up again, or they know somebody that needs our help, keeping them in the loop in our marketing that's going out there. And so the whole point here is, if you have your internal EMR systems, if you have your marketing systems working all these different automations, you're going to have the ability to get more new patients in, retain them, and increase your referrals. And that gives you predictability for your scaling.
And that's actually a perfect segue. So, Bridget, with this automation in play, what are some of the best steps and best processes to reduce these fractured ecosystem, to employ automation, to employ interoperability between these systems that clinicians have to use?
Yeah, I think great question. And this has been, I think, the plague of a lot of healthcare software, specifically, I think, specialty software. They're not open. There are no APIs to integrate into them, right? And they're to source out. It's very difficult to get data out of them as well, right? I think it starts, first of all, I think as a platform, you have to be sure. I think you should know what your strength is, right? So we as a platform know that we are not a marketing company. So we've never tried to build a marketing suite by ourselves, right? I think it's a different skill set that you need to do. And giving options for people to integrate into a platform, right? I think we integrate with 6 or 7 different EMRs, right? CRMs, be it a Keep, be it I think Begin, Zoho CRM, HubSpot, bunch of them, right? So make it easy for others to integrate into you, and also for you to source data. So when we say we do an integration with these softwares, it's not just they have access to our APIs, right? We also send events and tags to them. a patient book an appointment, a patient cancel an appointment, there's a discharge happening, right? And then you can set up your automations on some of these platforms. I think we're very early in that game, but I think in two systems need to exchange information. And this is very prevalent in the non-healthcare SaaS world. If you go to servicetitan.com today, right, which works with plumbers and HVACs and all that, I think the landing page says that they have 70 plus integrations. Go to any EMR website and say that which EMR has a 70 plus integration. None of them have, right? So I think it starts with being open to collaborating, not wanting to do everything possible under the sun, work with the experts, make your platform open to be doing that, right? Second is, as a system of record, participate in the outcome, right? Your job is not, if you are the system of record, you have a responsibility. The cash flow runs to the clinic, the revenues run to the clinic. I think give data back to people like Neil, who can do LTV analysis, lifetime value analysis, who can do actually analysis and figure out what the right channel mix for Christi is, right? And we know that every channel maxes out at some point. There's seasonal there's seasonal fluctuation at points of time, right? Some points of time Google might work, sometimes Facebook might work. I think giving data back on what they're seeing on the end result, which is again objective, right? Why is Christi doing marketing? Christi doing marketing to get patients and get good patients who give them good revenue, right? I think that's what the goal is. If that information is not being fed back to Neil, right, he'll not be able to optimize his campaigns. And then how is Christi going to be different from the 10 other clinics that they're working in the area, right? Because you're doing the same cookie cutter campaign. So I think keeping your systems open, collaborating with others, sending them meaningful information, important to the life cycle of the patient, and then sharing the outcome, right? Taking responsibility of the outcome and sharing it back with Neil so they can act on it is the right way to think of it. So when I was the CTO at Ola, which was a larger ride-hailing company, I had this problem. We were giving incentives to passengers, we were giving incentives to drivers, and I could not figure out which one of the incentives is working. And what ends up being, I'm giving incentives to both sides, and as a result, I'm not making money. Is my platform doing well? I'm giving incentives to drivers, and when you're running a business as an owner, you don't want to take a backward step, right? So if something's working well and you want to optimize it, you will never you will never shut the tap because you're worried that, okay, what if patients stop coming if I shut off one of these channels, right? I think it's important to exchange data, be focused on the outcome, the two systems to collaborate and keep analyzing the data and keep optimizing it. That's the way for two systems to work together. And that's how the industry can move forward. And other industries do that, is what I would say, right? ServiceTitan, Toast, a bunch of these software companies, they have so many integrations.
Yeah, that is, I think, using technology to extend your ability. That is the key, and I think this is a great time for Christi. How would you reflect on what your life looks like now that you have this alignment with a marketing technology organization, with an EMR technology organization? You spoke a little bit about being able to spend time with the patients, but how does you even reflect on your personal life and your availability? Have you seen any changes in your freedom?
Oh, yes, I take so much time off work now. It's it's unbelievable. What I'm realizing is as my company is getting more and more efficient and as everything is flowing easier, I'm not having to spend any time really double checking anything, making sure it's getting done, or even just like worrying about if the future of this. And so it does free up my time to be able to spend more quality time with my family. I'm able to be present at all of my kids' events now. I've been able to reduce my patient caseload and not treat as much, so I can free that up. Even meetings are becoming more efficient. I'm not just having meetings just to meet. And so it's all been really good. And the integration, I have to say, is probably the key aspect of that. Having a program that allows me to then be able to see everything in real time has been amazing. Even SPRY integrating with my telecommunication software system, that has been vital in our ability to get patients in right away during any kind of cancellations. And we used to request 24-hour cancellations. I can fill that spot in less than 2 hours now. And, because people respond to text. Before, we would be on the phone calling and no one would really answer. And so, and emails, no one checks those on a daily basis. And so the text messaging, and, being able to get responses in real time as we go, that's another great integration that we have. The marketing in that aspect is probably, when I started out as a business owner, you had that mindset of like, I can do it all. And I'm telling you that I can do none of that now. And because again, time and technology is improving so fast, so quickly, I can't keep up. even social media is like ridiculous. And so being able to outsource all of that to a team that does it all for me makes it so that I can literally in my sleep just get patients coming in the door. I get requests for appointments, like even I just got 2 just sitting here talking to you guys. So it is automated. It's great. I don't have to sit. And the best thing about it too, like Neil was saying, is because we can be so specific in our marketing. I know those are quality leads. They're not going to be leads that are like, oh, they're really actually looking for chiropractic, not PT. Or they're not even sure why they're coming because they were referred by their doctor and not because of direct access. They want to be here. The compliance is great. The buy-in's great. They complete their plan of care. Patients have great value and outcomes. So they keep coming back. And we just have grown this cult-like following of fans and patients that won't, go anywhere else now. Again, this makes it so that I am now able to like really take a step back and take 3-week vacations, and I don't take my work with me. I used to take my laptop with me everywhere, and my IT team's like, why are you signing in from Albania? Like, what's going on? And so now I don't even bother doing that. I may get an occasional text here and there, but I do not work on vacation. I truly vacation, which has been amazing. So
Yeah, you got your life back, right? As a human being.
I do. I can't imagine life any differently now. I will not ever go back. I cannot go back.
That's pretty awesome. So, and Neil, next question is for you. So as a growth and a marketing expert, what are some of the bottlenecks that you see in this growth trajectory for practices based on size and based on scale, and how can you reduce them or their impact?
Yeah, I think what I see time and time again, because I work with so many different, 1,200 different clinic locations. So there's lots of different sizes of clinics. And time and time again, it comes back to what got you here won't get you there. And you have to be able to level up each system in your business. So your marketing systems, your EMR and operational systems, your billing and finance systems, like all of these need improvement all the time. And I would say like that becomes the bottleneck too. Is like if you're operating off an old system, let's say for example you're operating off an old website that's 3-4 years old, maybe 5 years old, that's like going from an iPhone 6, right? You need to be operating on an iPhone 17 because in the online world, for example, Google makes hundreds of updates a year. And they just had a massive one happen in the first quarter around a lot of AI searches and technologies. So we've seen some significant impacts of clients that have redeveloped their website recently because of those changes. And so it's just one of those things where, hey, my website, I think it's fine, it looks good, but underneath the hood, the coding and all those kind of things from 5 years ago just can't compete with what's needed in today's world. And so it's the same thing like from an EMR perspective, right? You used to work with 3 therapists, that was fine. But if you're growing your business and you're trying to get to 5 or 10 therapists or more, you need to have better systems, better reporting, more efficiencies. And we have an incredible opportunity in today's world with a lot of new AI technologies that we can make life simpler, right, for our therapists and just get them to focus on what they do well, which is treat patients.
Yeah, I think maintaining agility, I think as a platform, but also as a organization and as a discipline, always updating your worldview and your beliefs and your infrastructure so that you're not stagnating. So I think
I just sorry to interrupt, but I agree with Neil. People, I'm a business owner on the other side, right? People think launching a website is the last step. Actually, the first step, right? Keeping it updated is very, very crucial, right? I mean, I've seen that on SPRY. We have grown from around 5,000 visitors to 140,000 visitors, right? But if you don't update it, if you're not keeping up to pace, you're not adding new calculators, you're not adding new prompts, you're not adding to what users are wanting, you will slowly see your rankings diminish, right? And you will keep going down. So I think it's very, very important to keep it updated. While you keep updated with the processes, it's very important to keep the inbound funnel going as well. It's an ongoing job.
Yeah, and so with these processes being updated, Christi and Bhuptani, both of you can discuss. We're talking about the front end processes of like EMR and business operation, but what about the back end, the ability to manage revenue cycle effectively and impactfully with the rules around reimbursement are changing by the minute. And so what have you both seen and what have you done to optimize the deliverable in terms of getting paid fairly and being able to get paid fully for the services rendered?
Like on my end as a business owner, I'm constantly looking at our, reimbursement per visit. So, the nice thing is that being able to see that in real time, I'm able to see, oh, that insurance paid crap. I think we're going to have to drop that insurance. It's just not worth it. And other areas too, when I look at reimbursement wise, I'm realizing, okay, so this is kind of pushing me towards like deciding, do I eventually create more cash programs? Because we got to offset that, right? So you got to come up and be, more strategic in your, ways of pivoting to offset some of the lower reimbursements if you decide to continue with that. And unfortunately, Medicare is one of the lower reimbursing insurances right now, and it's the patient population that probably needs the physical therapy the most. And so I'm ethically, morally unwilling to give up that insurance, but in order to do so, I'm going to need to offset that. So it's creating, other revenue streams of income that I need to do. So again, because technology is changing and growing so much faster, I'm constantly trying to keep up with new stuff. Like, what other new stuff can we add? What other regenerative programs can we add? What other, inventions are out there that I don't even know about? And in the marketing world, there's just so much I didn't know. I didn't know I needed a new website. I didn't know I needed, a new this, a new that. And so, stuff that I didn't know I needed, and then learning that, and then being able to then implement that, and then creating a strategy or plan around that, and then boom, launching that program and continuing to keep growing. So again, those are all very important things. And, the technology and the software program allows me to be able to do that. So.
Yeah, that is perfect. So Neil, how would you reflect if you are new to essentially business ownership, or if you just started your practice, what are some of the best first steps to integrate practice promotions, to integrate these systems into your practice so that you get a head start?
Sure. Yeah, I think what I always tell practice owners is that, especially when it comes to marketing, right? It's a collaborative effort. And I think the worst thing you can do is, and just like it's been great feedback from Christi to Bridge, and obviously that helps them improve the outcome for Christi. Same thing for us. Like Christi works a lot with our team because she has feedback. She has different campaigns, things that she's thinking of in the clinic, and then we're able to help fulfill those needs for her, whether it's emails, socials, Google Ads, improvements to the website, whatever. So that's one of the things going in is like you want to be able to use automation where you can, but you still have to have a pulse on it. And if you're just going into it like, hey, I'm just going to set stuff up, I'm going to forget it, and I'm just going to treat patients, that you're not wearing your hat as an entrepreneur, right? So I think that's one of the key things to go into it. But looking at planning out, where again, okay, and if you wrap it around like, okay, my business and also the patient experience, like, okay, how's this going to look? People finding me, what's that patient experience going to look like? What's it going to look like for their experience within the clinic? How can I make that as easy as possible? And then, as we were just talking about the billing side of it, like that's where a lot of friction can happen with patients. And if bills don't go out timely, if there's billing errors that occur, I'm frustrated as a patient, right? And so then that impacts their reviews on me, impacts their referrals to me, the PR of the clinic. So finance is extremely important for the PR, the branding of the practice. And so that's where, again, having critical systems in place and looking ahead for that, especially around finance and the billing aspect and the documentation aspect, I just know time and time again, like that makes it a great experience for the patient. And that's going to make you able to scale your business.
Yeah. And Christi, how do you see this scaling part acting, especially from a patient perspective? What is some of the feedback you are receiving in a clinic from the patients now that you have optimized your delivery system?
It's been interesting. There are some that embrace technology, and there are some that will never embrace technology. And so we try to cater to both because, again, it's kind of like having two very different children. They don't respond to the same stuff. And so having the technology-based software, I have some patients that come in, they don't even want to see my front desk. They just go right to the kiosk, check themselves in, pay their copay and sit down, and they just want to get their treatment and get out. And so we have that option. And then we also have, the front desk who are live and present and can, address them and answer all their questions and take care of all their worries and concerns, do their payments, even by check, and so they just really don't want to embrace the technology, and that's fine. But because we have those options and that variability, it's great that we can offer that to every type of patient that comes in, and we have everything in between. We even have a virtual front desk, so we have that option too. And so it's nice to be able to offer that. The patients who are embracing the technology just love it because they don't even want to call us. They just text us, and they don't want to actually have to call to make an appointment. They'll just go and do it on their own. They don't want to call us to make a payment. They'll just go to their portal and do that. So they just want the minimal contact, and they love it. They love it. And those that do want a little bit of variability, oh, I can just text it to you. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Yeah, go ahead. Or we'll send them a link, and they're like, you can just email it or text it to me. And I'm like, yeah, we can just text you a link and you can do whatever there. So they're just really appreciative of the options, the convenience. We live in such a world of convenience now that if anything gets delayed or takes them one more click or whatever, they just won't do it. Even scheduling something that's like one more thing, boom, they won't do it, So getting that patient care completed and getting them through their entire plan of care requires that automation, that efficiency. So I think majority of my patients have absolutely loved it. The old school patients still love the fact that we provide the other options too. So, but the value they perceive the most is that direct attention that they haven't been able to get anywhere else. And that has been pivotal for our growth.
And now you have the bandwidth for it, right? To provide it.
Yeah. I mean, really, the biggest problem we have now is just hiring more therapists. And I hate to say, because you never want to stop marketing, but sometimes I'm like, wow, we just don't have the ability to take on any more new patients. So maybe don't market that type of clientele right now. Maybe we only market our cash pay programs, and so we have that option too. So.
And it would be actually perfect to have our entire panel discuss the stakeholder management. So, Bridget, first for you, how do you identify the correct stakeholder to manage? Christi just referenced that some patients love technology, some patients hate technology or just don't embrace it. And so, how do you build tech that can equally appeal to tech forward and tech backward consumers?
Yeah, I think it would be very arrogant to think someone is tech backwards, right? At least I think that my product's not good enough to appeal to them, right? I think that's, at least we try to be modest on that. And we always, at least the motto we use within SPRY, the customer's always right and we are not the right ones, right? And I think we've had that view from day one because we've not been from the industry, right? We've not been very cocky about how things should be, how things ought to be. The way we have built things, the way we have grown, I think is by listening to people, right? And that's why I think early days, we didn't have a view of how it is. So I think there are two types of products is what people say, right? Opinionated product would tell you how things ought to be. And then the people like us, the white canvas, right? Who listen to you and do that. So we don't think there's tech backwards. I think there are different use cases, there are different cohorts. Not everyone's the same. Christi said that there are two different boys and I have two boys at home and I don't think they could be any more different than each other, right? People are always going to be different. There are some lowest common denominator. What people want. Right? People want convenience. People want less friction. That doesn't change. I don't know of a human being who wants more friction, right? Or I don't want of a human being who wants more inconvenience, right, to get to the clinic or make the payments, right? So I think keep that in mind and keep building the product and be open to the fact that not everything will be ready and up to date for everyone on day one, right? But the idea is to keep listening to that, keep understanding, keep looking at those numbers, right? When we started Scribe, for example, right, it was not a hit on day one. People only use it for the initial evaluation on day one. No one was doing follow-up notes on Scribe. We listened to that and we didn't say that, okay, Scribe, it's the therapist's mistake, right? Because the therapists are not doing Scribe for follow-up. The technology was not up to mark. We made changes to it. We made adaptations to it to make it happen for the follow-up. And I think we still have a long way to go. But I think for us, that's the way to think about it, right? Everyone uses, like ChatGPT today has 800 million users to billion users, right? How can you call them technology backwards? And most of these guys use it. I think it's about you understanding where your limitations are, understanding that you've not built it for everyone, prioritize that. Is that the cohort you want to prioritize? Yes, you want, and if that's the cohort you want to prioritize, build the solutions for them. And I'm sure that if you build the solutions, people will come, right? I think I just take the example of my mom. I think she would never use an app, but she would never use a smartphone. But the moment she was able to book a cab online and she could go visit her friends without depending on me, she learned that process, right? She could do that. She didn't She didn't learn mobile apps for Googling or YouTube, but this is a process. So if you build the use cases for people, we are resilient enough, we are smart enough to build that. So I think we at least be modest. We understand. We always blame ourselves and not the customer if something's not working for us. That's the way we think about it.
Yeah, and Neil, what would you say about that specific stakeholder management and the build infrastructure?
I think Christi really nailed it there in terms of you get to a point where you're busy and you can be selective of who you want to accommodate, right? And you got to start with your audience in mind, and that's the key thing. Really know your audience. And one of the challenges that we have as practice owners is we want to treat everybody, we want to service everybody, but actually the more we niche down, the more successful we become. And we see that time and time again, especially clinics like for example, like women's health clinics, or we have sports medicine and sports performance clinics. They've really niched down and they're going after that specific audience, which is relatively large. They can grow significantly and they can, get to that price point per visit that they want to get to. Whereas if we're just treating everybody, trying to get anybody in, it's like one therapist trying to do all neurology care and another doing pelvic health care and another doing pediatric care. Like you can't be an expert at everything. So really get to know who is your ideal audience for you in your practice. And I would go too of like, okay, where's the opportunities there from a reimbursement per visit to get me where I need to be? Because what's noble to want to help, let's say, Medicaid patients, that might not be the right audience for you if you're trying to, and you have an opportunity, let's say, for example, like sports performance, and that's cash pay, right? So we're in that kind of industry now, and the evolution of our industry where we have to niche down more. And I would say just start with knowing your audience that you want to go after.
And the audience and the patient and payer mix. So, Christi, with you being an operator for all this time, and you referenced how variable reimbursement is between a federal payer like Medicare and a commercial payer, what have you seen since these smart systems emerged in your ability to manage the payer mix? So not just patient volume, but actually patient quality and the payer mix quality on your side.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that was going to be a leading cause of burnout for some of my patients or some of my therapists because, you got certain therapists who really only like certain type of patients. And when they get stuck with a patient population they don't really like treating, that also added to their burnout level. And having, 10 of those in a day, they just would look at their schedule and they'd just be like, so sad to start their day. And so I would say that the payer mix problem that we had, as a business owner, you got all these hats I wear, and as a business owner, I'm like, we have a bottom line we need to meet, and we're not doing it with this insurance. I have no problems cutting this insurance off. The other hat I wear as a PT, I'm like, I really want to help this poor person, but then, that's not going to happen through their insurance. And how can we help them? How can we bring value to them without using their crappy insurance? And so we then offer all these other various cash pay programs that they can utilize and still get good quality care that is more on a wellness basis or, cash pay basis. And we don't have to utilize their insurance anymore. And so it seems to work out. It's just initially people just aren't used to paying cash for PT, and it's always been a covered product under insurance. And so they didn't realize that they can, utilize other programs out there and pay cash that they can afford. Maybe they're not coming in 3 times a week, but they can afford this program and still get value care just like they would have. And it's offered by a therapist with the knowledge base of rehab, in the background. And so they are able to monitor and make sure that they're not doing things that's going to make them worse. And so it's better than just going to the gym by itself. So And we've been able to really utilize that and drop these insurances that were paying us crap, and, you know, minimize the burnout for the therapists who didn't want to work with this type of patient population or this diagnosis or whatever. And so, yeah, it's great because you can really model that. So
Yeah. So we're gonna start wrapping things up before we start taking questions from the audience. And the first question for Neil will be essentially a summary and the next steps. What would you suggest for anyone who is in the audience now, or who will you view a recording of this? What should be a go-to structure and logic for integration of these systems into your clinic operation?
Yeah, I would suggest taking a step back, looking at what you currently have in place, and really listing out, okay, where's your bottlenecks in your business? And so is it getting new patients in? Is I'm not getting consistent patients in? Is it it's costing me, I don't know what's happening in my marketing, so I have no idea what's happening with it. Or is it that, you know, my therapists are having to do notes for hours afterwards, and things are a little discombobulated there, or the billing's not working really well. So I think kind of listing out first what for you are the bottlenecks in your business, and there might be a lot, but pick the ones that you think are going to have the maximum impact on the business. Maybe that's getting more new patients in the door. Maybe it is more efficiency in your operations, so you can have that better patient experience and not drop therapists either. Or maybe it's making sure that you can get timely payment. So whatever those key things are for you, then you can start to map out, like, okay, what systems do I need to have or improve on this? Maybe I need a better patient acquisition system. Maybe I need to lower my cost to get a patient in the door, right? Or maybe we need to speed up our ability to do documentation. So there's a lot of things that you look at, and then look at where you can get help, because you can't figure it out on your own. And you need to be able to, like we do it all the time, like we help clinics like Kintsugi and Christi to implement much more sophisticated marketing systems, right? And for SPRY, right? And so being able to bring in documentation that goes beyond what your current EMR is doing. So it's really looking at, okay, what's in the marketplace that can help me overcome that bottleneck in my practice.
And Bridge, same question for you.
Yeah, can you repeat the question, Alex? So what context you want?
So what is the process for the first day? Someone who's exploring the market, what is the process for day one of getting a system like SPRY integrated into a clinical practice? What would you suggest? What are some of your recommendations, and what is some of your vision?
Obviously, I want the SPRY perspective bias, but I think understanding the business, right? And as I think Christi and Neil have been mentioning, like, who's going to be your audience, right? Are you going to run a high volume clinic? Are you going to be a one-on-one care clinic? Are you looking at new patients versus consistent stream of new patients, repeat patients? Are you signing up with the hospital for referral network? Are you partnering with a gym, right? So I think understand from that, right? I think it's very important to understand your business. I think don't try to do everything on day one, right? Don't try to be one-on-one care as well as a high volume clinic. And then I think adopt the system accordingly. Right? Are you going to be cash, or are you going to be insurance? And within insurance, there is obviously, it's just not about the payer mix, it's also the in-network, out-network component, right? If I'm living in a wealthy local, I have a lot of clinics. We have a lot of clinics which are in wealthy localities, right? Right next to Google, Honeywell, and they prefer out-of-network versus network. So I think, first of all, narrowing down on how you are going to do and being clear about your business is right. And the other problem is, what is your therapist mix going to be? Is it going to be PTs, or is it going to be PTs, PTAs, aides, etc.? Right? Because a lot of those things matter as well. And then you start listing down that if this is my mix, this is the operational style of how I want to do, then you choose the system of choice, right? If you have a lot of PTs and PTAs, then you rather want a system which has flow sheets, automatic flow sheets component, which does that, right? If you're doing one-on-one care, you want a EMR system which allows you to write detailed notes, right? But if you're doing cash, then you want something which allows a lean note. So I think it comes down to whether you want to do SPRY or not. Again, I think it comes down to understanding what your audience is, what you want to achieve as a business, and what are those goals, right? And then you buy a system or opt for a system which works according to that. That is my recommendation, because if in the early days, SPRY was not amenable to cash pay, right? And if people who had taken SPRY, we would have gone on calls and said, okay, don't choose SPRY, right? Because we would have had an unhappy customer 6 months down the line, which is something we would not have wanted as well. So I think it's about understanding what your business is going. And same with out of network. We were not good with out of network until few quarters back, and now we improved the systems, and now we know what needs to get that done. So it's not that SPRY is going to be fit for everything, but I think understand your business, understand how your revenue is going to come in, how your patient flow is going to come in, and then essentially work towards that.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And Neil, also for you, as we open the floor, so for the audience, anyone should ask a question. We have 5 minutes to answer questions, but what is your overall projection for the industry as a whole? What do you see the next couple of years holding for physical therapy market in the United States?
Absolutely. I've been a proponent for this on our podcast and things that we have here, our practice marketing podcast. I actually had the APTA president on that episode will be coming out real short. We were talking about just this, that we haven't, most industries would kill for what we have, which is this increasing demand year after year. And so we have this incredible opportunity ahead for us. But the thing is, we can't service everybody. And if the numbers say that by 2030, we're going to have a $3 trillion health and wellness industry. The question for us is, how do we capitalize on that? And that's where people are much more expected to pay cash for services that they want to do to stay healthy and well. We have a great opportunity with that. And so where I see the future of our practice and what we should be really capitalize on is a hybrid model, where we have core services around insurance-based, helping people recover after injuries, but then we have other cash service lines that we attract people to adjunct to that. And we're seeing a lot of clinics be very successful with that. So whether that's a sports performance, a pelvic health, laser, you name it, there's a myriad of different services that we can offer within our practice that go beyond just the traditional outpatient care. And that is really the future of our profession, because insurance is not going to save us. Congress isn't going to save us. But here we are, we look at many gyms and chiropractic and massage, very large entities that are able to grow in these cash environments because people want that health and wellness service. So we have to adjust our model to tap into that, and we're seeing a lot of clinics be successful at that, and that's really the future of the practice that I see.
I just want to chime in there, right? Because this is a problem. This is a pain point I have with the industry, right? I think I'm not a physical therapist, nor I was from US healthcare. Right? What people always ask me, why did you choose PT of all the things in the world that you could potentially do, right? You could do Bitcoin and you could do AI, but all of it PT, I think. But I would die to be killed to be in an industry which has growing demand. I was in an industry which has 150 million people riding every day, but public transport, but that was declining because how many new buses are we launching every day? How many new metro lines are we building? People are going to cars. So you don't want to be in an industry which is big but declining. You want to be in an industry which is growing, right? And I don't understand the cynicism behind insurance reimbursement. I know it's a problem to be solved, but I would rather be in an industry which is always growing. And then it's up to your imagination, right? What is it that you could do? The hybrid models that people are talking about, right? Membership. There are so many things, and the advent of people like Hinge and so would make it far more amenable, right? And it's proven over time. When Amazon came in, offline retail did not die, or movies did not die when Netflix came in, right? The consumption just increases because they create more awareness. So I would love to be in an industry which has growing demand. And that's the reason we chose PT. Not that we understand. I don't still understand what range of motion actually means very well. But I'd love to be in an industry where there's growing demand. And I don't understand some of the cynicism and some of the like it's dying, it's declining, and Medicare and all of that. It's you have people coming through, and that's what you want.
Yeah, and so we're gonna start closing things off. We only have 2 minutes. For the audience, if there is a question, please feel free to reach out to Neil, to Bridge, to Christi. The contact information should be included, and we would love to answer your questions even after the taping of this webinar. But Christi, what is your view? I think it's really important. You are in a trenches. So what do you forecast for our industry to look like?
Yeah, I mean, I knew even probably 15, 16 years ago when I started going into the very first EMR system that healthcare and technology were going to be integrated from that point forward. So just being open-minded about how that looks in the future. Luckily, I married a tech guy, and so he was constantly bringing me awareness to what's going on in technology. And I was like, wow, if only they could do that with healthcare, and then boom, they did. And so I think that in the future, it's going to be impossible to not have an integrated system of some kind and operate and as a cash pay clinic. I don't think you can do it. If you want to grow to any extent, you just can't do it. And also, I think the future with insurance is it's just not going to be, like Neil said, it's just not going to save us. And so people are seeing more and more value in products and things that aren't necessarily insurance based. You just have to be able to show that. Patients already know what they want. They just don't know how to get it or where to get it. And so being able to provide continued valuable resources or treatments or options for them. A good chunk of my patients, I refer them out to every other thing out there too. It's not like you have to have that growth mindset, because I cannot, like you guys said, I cannot treat everyone out there. I want to, but I can't. I'd be doing a horrible job if I try to do that. And so I have to be able to find stuff for them too. And then they always come back for other things. Believe me, there's enough people getting injured every day that I don't need to continue to market that. But because of the type of patients that we're looking for at Kintsugi, the niche practice that we have, we're going to probably be transitioning more to a cash pay and less of that insurance. We will still continue to hold on to the insurances that are still meeting our bottom line. But you have to have a plan to pivot and be innovative. And so I think it will lead to some type of hybrid, if not a relatively full cash pay program for healthcare. And again, with patients seeing value, you have to have an integrated system with marketing and a robust EMR system that's fully capable of integrating with all the other systems, like your telecommunication system and so forth. So.
I totally agree with Christi on that. And I had one last thought here, which ties all into that. And we're, as an industry, we're in a very competitive time for therapists, for people to actually deliver the service. Rising demand and not enough supply coming from the PT schools, right? So we're in a very competitive environment for talent, and it's going to be that way for decades to come. So you can get new patients as much as you want, but you still got to get people to service and deliver the physical therapy, right? And the right people that want to be on your team. So I would say that you're going to also be judged on the experience for the therapist within the practice and your ability to attract talent. People who have been used to using EMRs that are very AI dominant and able to work with make their treatment approach very easy, they're going to be looking for similar type of practices if they decide to change jobs. And so if you can't deliver that within your practice to have a really easy experience for delivering care by your therapists, that's not going to make you competitive in the environment. So I think that's something to really consider in upgrading your systems. So how can you make it as easy as possible for your therapist to deliver exceptional care and get paid well for doing that?
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Christi. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Bridge, for being part of this webinar. And please visit and schedule a demo with these practices. And please say thank you to Christi for doing a great job in the field. And let's keep moving our profession forward, Jen.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you.